Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. Tenki, good luck editing this shit. It's 4 a.m., daylight savings. I had the longest day of my life today. Not the longest day of my life, but it was a long day. Felt very long because I'm very old, losing my hair. I watched the LEC. I'm at the LEC studio. That's why I'm in my current setup. I'm in my hotel room. It's very late at night. I'm super tired, so we're gonna try to do this as best as we can. Very big day because we had some upset victories, some upset games. Considering how the format works, of course, you go into the final weekend knowing that a lot is going to be on the line, and we knew that the standings are very close, very very tight. Let's just jump into the games. Team Heretics versus Astralis. Team Heretics banned Elise, Sejuani, Varus, which is the bans that Astralis have shown. Like people have banned against Astralis many times already, so I think it's fairly easy for Astralis to branch out and to be in a situation where you're ready for these bans because the Elise, Sejuani is like the core bans that we've seen against Astralis. They follow up with a Jinx Maokai after the enemy first pick Rakan. Against Team Heretics, I think you can go at them two ways. Either you ban the ADs, or you just ban, of course, the junglers. I think a good approach against Team Heretics as well is to just deny Wukong and Vi. But I think if you have a team that has a top laner that is willing to play AD champions top, or AD champs mid, for that matter, I think that you can play into Vi no problem. I still think Sejuani and Maokai are some of the strongest junglers on the patch. Of course, here Sejuani is banned, so they go for Maokai, and I think that's perfectly fine. Rakan is first picked. They follow up by Jinx, Maokai, considering Zaya's out of the picture. I don't think there's any AD that you can pick with Rakan that's going to threaten Jinx, so I really like the Jinx lock-in. I think Jinx, especially on the next patch, is going to be played super, super much. I think there's already a lot of great spots for her. And here there's no Zaya, there's no Varus. So I think there's nothing really that can pressure Jinx. So I like the Jinx lock-in. And we follow up with Zeri Wukong. I don't think Wukong is that great against Maokai. I think Maokai is probably the biggest enemy for Wukong that exists in the game because you can place the saplings for the you can place the saplings for the Wukong flank, and then plain and simple, you are in a situation where you play front to back. And sure, Maokai maybe Wukong can maybe find some counterplay with W into the ult, but I think this is very favorable for Maokai because Wukong can't really expose the biggest weakness of Maokai, and that is if he's finding himself in a position where he fights level 2, 3, 4, and that's not something really that Wukong can leverage. They follow up with Nautilus, which is standard right into Zeri, some hard CCs. I think that's great. I think it's a good matchup into Rakan, Jinx, Nautilus. Like Jinx, you can pair her with almost any support and you have no problem. Astralis went for the Sion K'Sante ban. I don't know, Team Heretics, maybe they know something I don't, but they banned Azir themselves. Today we see a leader on Azir. It's going to be a fun day. Maybe we're never going to see that. Because they reworked Azir and this champion is quite useless on 13.5. It's funny though. It's like the teams that are playing against Astralis, they're getting their minds so fucking twisted about what they think leader can or cannot play. Like they're blind picking Lissandra. They are blind picking Lissandra. That is too funny. That is too funny. Maybe they banned Azir to just set up the Casio blind, which is fine, right? I don't think it was a terrible idea. I think Casio is perfectly fine. We have the Jackson 4 after San K'Sante is banned, which is kind of weird, right? It's like Jax should be decent into Cyan and K'Sante, but this is, of course, targeted specifically at Evi. Gragas is definitely worse to play against than any of the other champions, in my opinion, when you're playing Jax. But Jax is playing now against Casio and Gragas. Like, this is a very, very unappealing Jax game. Like, this is a terrible Jax game. My man's about to go on the Astralis bus, and he has a ticket that is funded by the government that Kobe Jong-un 113 and of course leader is running. So Finn is very fortunate. Zed here on 5. Zed is something we've seen in Casio in the past. Um, I wouldn't dare to comment on how the matchup goes. I don't know how things have evolved. I just remember like my really outdated information regarding this matchup is that um, at some point when you find yourself with Dirk and a couple of long swords, you can begin to chip at her HP. You can poke her out. I think having access to Catalyst and Road of Ages, I feel like should be improving the matchup for Casio. But all in all, like I don't have super much feedback to say on this matchup. Something I can say though, right, is like a concern if you look at the red side is that they might be AD heavy. I think that the enemy team does have incentives to potentially get Mercs and Tenacity. And also when you're playing Zed and Jax, you can easily just buy Black Cleaver, you can get Cyrilda. I think in the end for Zed, if you think about the strongest AD items in the game that you can buy, aren't necessarily the lethality items. Sure, there are spots where the lethality items are better, but I'd say that Black Cleaver and Cyrilda are really strong items for Zed. So he's not super concerned with the enemy stacking too much armor. I think it's more tied to Hourglass, having access to Hourglass and also getting value out of the stats. I think that's something that can hurt him more. But that's it about the draft. I think Astralis, after the level 2 gank bot, they rolled a Hextech Drake, they rolled a Mountain Drake. There was a situation around the third Drake, which I think they could have played better. I think that in terms of how they set up and how they turned with Jax could have been a little bit more sharp. The enemy team managed to snag that Drake, and then coming into the fourth Drake, they just traded Drake for Nashor. And all in all, Astralis, it never really looked like they, lost control over this game. I think Astralis is just a step above Team Heretics, and Team Heretics didn't bring anything unique to the table, and they lost fair and square. Koi versus XL. Now that was a weird one. That was a super weird one. Oramne having a fantastic game on the mall fight. First and foremost, with the bans, you have Draven, Zaya, Jace, and then you have Rakan, Caitlyn, and Annie on red side, and then followed by first pick Zeri. Whoa, Lucianami, Zeri, Lulu. Whoa, it's just the natural progression when there's so many AD bans. Maybe you can play like a Varus lane, but I think you have to be so precise with Varus and play the right supports, and even when you play it super well, like to finish games with Varus lanes is very hard, in my opinion. It's like not a lot of teams are good at it. It's like even Damwon struggled really hard doing that. Zinza Sejuani to target some of the Malrang early game pool champs, followed by Azir for Larson. Some of these mid laners, they keep getting away with getting Larson. I mean, Azir 4-5, which is crazy to me. It's like people are in denial about this champion when it comes to players like Larson and what's his name? Humanoid. Malphite on 5, I kind of like it. I think it's a decent matchup in Dinar. Not as good as it played out, but decent. And I don't think Vi ever is going to ult you. So Malphite, is going to be able to itemize armor. I think Malphite as an ult is just generally speaking quite strong. It's like even when Malphite can just Q the Zeri when she has ult on, also makes a difference. I think Malphite is just a fine champion, and considering got the buff on W, I think that this champion is not too bad. This game, XL was in the driver's seat. They had a decent early game. They snowballed towards the Drakes. I have to point out when it comes to XL, like they seem so scared to make mistakes. I'm quite disappointed in Xerxes because I expect more from him. But I see so many angles in the game where if he just committed and just pressed his buttons, I think that things would look so much better. You know, I feel like Excel are so scared to pull the trigger and to use their abilities in unison. They're kind of waiting and lingering and waiting for the enemy to make a mistake, which at the same time allows Koi to take their time and to make as educated opinions and guesses as possible in the game. Excel was definitely stronger throughout, and they managed to even secure Soul. And then we just got to this point where somehow, Malrang just steals the second Elder Dragon of the game, and the game is finished. This was a snooze fest, very disappointing game. Excel showed some quality in terms of, you know, setting up drakes and so forth, but in terms of like mechanical execution, it looks like I don't know if it's a lack of confidence or it's just I can't believe it's a lack of awareness because I've seen players like Xerxes play so much better, you know? So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the tension and the pressure of everything. Maybe it's the corona that they are suffering from. You know, I don't know what the situation is, but I wish Excel kind of put their balls on the line a little bit more instead of being so timid and allowing a game like this. Just because they're so afraid of risk, they did the riskiest thing of them all, and that is to do nothing. Vitality versus BDS. Vitality versus BDS. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Vitality versus BDS. So Vitality banned Varus, Sejuani, and Vi. BDS follow up with Annie, Zaya, Heimerdinger. They want to deny the Caitlyn Heimerdinger lane, I presume, BDS. First pick Gragas, followed by Zeri Elise. I like Elise. I think Elise got nerfed, but in the end, I feel like Elise is still doing exactly the same thing as she did before. She secures your whole early game. And I feel like Elise can be used to transition champions into later stages of the game. And I kind of like that. Um, Enemy goes Zeri Elise, Lucian Army gets locked in, Zeri Lulu, as mentioned before, when all of these AD bans are out, Vi is out, and Zeri and Lucian becomes the matchup. No biggie. Enemy team, BDS, I call them enemy team for some reason. Jason Jax, they ban just some Photon Classics, and Vitality banned some Alum Classics in the shape of Darius and Sion. BDS lock in Azir on 4, which I like and appreciate. And Vitality followed up by just sending Gragas into Azir. So Gragas into Azir is very good because Gragas, it's like when you pick a champion into Azir, you want to have a champion that doesn't get pressured by the fact that he can shuffle you and murder you. That's why Corki is good into Azir. It's like Azir might be weak against Poke, but the issue is that he's a mage with engage tools and ways to threaten gank. So what you look for in a champion is a champion with a dash, and Gragas is the champion with a dash. So they send Gragas into mid against Azir, and they slam a Lee Sin and a Renekton, and I think that's perfectly fine. I thought when the Malphite lock in here, I didn't think it was that interesting. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think Malphite as a lock in here was that great. I think the most important thing that occurred this game for BDS was the fact that they managed to create conditions where they secured the first two Drakes. What comes out of that is that you can create a circumstance where it's like there's the Vitality team composition needs to play in a way where they are the ones on soul point coming into 22 minutes, 23 minutes, 24 minutes, right? It's so important. And due to the existence of Elise, BDS managed to create conditions where they took the early objectives. And when that happens, when you're the one playing the composition that falls off in theory, you are at the mercy of your opposition. You need to be able to leverage Nash into getting very big advantages, or you need to be able to. Um, I think that's it. Trying to think of what I thought of when I said that, but I think I'm just blanking. I'm completely running out of juice here. I think all in all, Vitality was super far ahead. They were looking very good in this game. I think the big throw just happened. I think just perks kept getting caught and kept getting chunked, and this allowed BDS to create a circumstance where they stole the game in front of them by just taking Nasher, which definitely shouldn't be allowed. I don't remember the exact details. I don't want to put that blame solely on Perks because I don't know if Vitality was in position at all to contest it, or if Gragas was going in there just to check, or what his idea was. But he got chunked out, and then BDS took Nash, and then there was this siege situation around mid lane that ended in a tragedy. There was a moment where Upset decided to dash forward on Azir to try to one-shot him. It didn't happen, and then he died in return, lost his GA, and all of a sudden you have this game state where 6 Drakes have been killed. You're so deep into the late game, and all of a sudden this composition that have a lot of champions that fall off is no longer, you know, functioning as it should. All of a sudden you have this ball fight that's completely overscaled. Like he's fucking 350 CS in this game. Azir is overscaled. It's like you broke inhibitors and you couldn't create a circumstance where you actually could take early dragons, and that is the most important detail of this game. Some people want to focus in on your upset dying and so forth, and for sure, Vitality in the conditions they were in could have ended this game. But it's so important that BDS actually secured these 2 Drakes because the the time horizon in terms of the time BDS bought for themselves to get to the point where Azir has 3 items, Zeri has 3 items, and Malphite even has 3 items. It is essential. So the Elise as a champion, I think it's something interesting to follow, and I like the fact that SK also picked it later in the day against G2 specifically, because I feel like Elise just secures your whole early game, and you don't have to outscale in every position in order to have a stronger late game than the opposition. Uh, Sometimes having one champion that is stronger than the enemy uh, is sometimes just enough, right? And in this particular case, BDS's case, like Azir is getting immense value here. BDS managed to turn it around. They killed Perks in the bottom, and then you had this circumstance which you just, eventually won the game. Vitality just ran out of gas. I think Bo played a decent game, after a rough early game. Um, Vitality had some moments of brilliance. They had some good fights. They had some catches, some good punishes, and they were definitely winning this game. Um, Vitality, they've lost a couple of games now, and it feels like some of the issues from Spring Split that are not AD carry related are still kind of lingering. I'm thinking of Kaiser on range supports is not looking super comfortable based off of the information that I have. Bo has the occasional games where he just completely sprints it when he, especially in those games where I feel like he doesn't have the agency that he deserves as a player, but that's a weird thing to say because no one really deserves it. It's like you're just in a game condition, and that shouldn't matter and impact your play. I feel like when Bo is in a dominant position, he looks so confident and he can mechanically challenge players in a way that I feel no other jungler can. But in cases where he's weaker, it feels like he's still chasing that, but he just can't. Yeah. The VidConnect meme is definitely going full circle because, yeah, the original BitConnect turned out to be a scam. So I hope it's not that bad. I'm praying for my boy Upset. Talk about DL haircut. Yo, Dom, I don't know. He has the new haircut or something. I'm so tired, like my eyes are melting in my skull right now. For the draft of the century from Mad Lions. So I thought, okay, Gragas, Rakan, Annie. So Fnatic are banning like all of the champions that you usually want to first pick. So Zaya, Vi gets banned, and Victor, and they first pick Sejuani. Perfectly standard. Okay. Mad Lions follow up with Lee Sin and Nautilus. I didn't understand. Like here, they decided to not go Zeri. I thought they're just gonna pick Zeri Wukong. You know, I thought they're just gonna pick Zeri Wukong, play a regular game, but instead they slam Nautilus. To some degree, I can understand the Nautilus, right? It's like, oh, the enemy team banned, like, picked Nautilus twice. They won 2 games with Nautilus. But blind picking Nautilus 1-2 like this, you're just inviting the power of the Freljord. The Braum, I think the Jinx is harder to expect for sure, but the Jinx is really, really fucking strong here. I really, really like the Jinx here. Already from 1-2-3, I don't see how Nautilus is going to play the game. It's like, I don't see how Lee Sin is going to play the game. I feel like as a theme already, Sejuani Braum into this full dive composition, I think that you're already in big trouble. Big trouble. Somehow, Fnatic is managing to fool the whole world, and still they find ways to get Azir for 5. How can they do this? Like, I think at this point you're already invested into the Victor ban. Why don't you ban Azir as well? Why don't you ban Talia as well? Instead, you're banning Jax and Renekton. And Oscarinin won on Jax, but to me that was completely uninteresting, his game. He was 3-0. He looked like a regular Jax. He was a passenger in that game. And here we have a follow-up, Azir, Olaf. Olaf into Nautilus is looking good. Enemy picks Silas, even better for Olaf. The enemy has full dive composition, you're playing Olaf, you're going to enjoy your life. At this game for Mad Lions, they walk into this game needing to have a solid 2-3k gold advantage on the right people 10 minutes into the game, or just FF. The Braum nullifies any level 1 strategies that you can create in order to burn summoners with Nautilus. That shit's fucking hard and impossible. I think that in this game, I can give a lot of props to Oscar Irin. I think this was by far his best stage game in terms of how he played around ganks and how he managed his wave. I think that was really, really good. But Mad Lions, this was a terrible, terrible draft. Horrible. I don't know what to say. This was truly, truly horrible. Another thing Fnatic could have done if they wanted to, right, is that they could have picked an AD jungler here and just sent Sejuani into Nar. They could have gone Wukong on 5 and then played the game 2. That's something that could have happened. but they didn't do this time around. I think Olaf is perfectly fine too. And then you're keeping your mid-5 pick here, and you open Azir to pick Silas, but you're playing Silas into Brom, playing Silas into Olaf. The key thing here, right, is like Mad Lions need to snowball, but they are weaker early game. They're weaker early game everywhere. It's truly absurd. There is no upside to what Mad Lions drafted. They did manage to get some good fights in, right? Through the sheer force of just strong individual play. But when they threw everything they had to kill Jinx, that just made the fight so much easier for us to play, and then the game was over. Still, I think Fnatic did. I think what I give them props for is just the Seju first pick and the Jinx lock in. I think the Braum is a no-brainer into Nautilus, and I think the main question still is, it's like what the fuck happens with Fnatic when they actually target Humanoid's champion pool in 4-5 bans? I think this was a very strange choice. I think Humanoid is a severely underrated player. Severely underrated. It's like he is really fucking good. You can ask any mid laner in the league when they lane against Humanoid that they know that this guy is really fucking good. You need to put some more respect on the champs that he's playing, you know. And I think with Seju and mid, you only really have synergy with the mages. So I thought the moment they opened Azir, I thought they're gonna fourth pick Azir, but they just didn't. But yeah, eventually Fnatic figure out that they just need to death ball and win. I think that the coaching staff did a fantastic job adapting here and making sure. You know, I said before the weekend, if you play against Mad Lions, don't let them have Rakan, don't let them have Annie, and don't let them have Gragas too. And I said the same about Fnatic, don't let them Zaya, don't let them Vi. But here, you know, with the Nautilus lock-in, I think the Braum Jinx lock-in became very easy. And I think that's a big positive. I'm happy that they're not putting Advian on range champions, but that's the main question, right? What happens if they did, right? So Fnatic, with this win, of course, puts them in a position to potentially, like with very high odds, qualify to the next stage. SK versus G2. So you have SK versus G2 in this particular game. I think the early game looked very good for SK. They managed to get a couple of kills. They managed to kill Maokai. I think Sion did a very good job of connecting in the game. I think that Sion diving bot was a really big deal. Sion ulting into the Drake fight was also a super big deal when Cho'Gath was punching the tower. I think G2 kept themselves in this game through the sheer force of just superior macro. I think G2 does a very good job of keeping tempo and not wasting time before base, and they always play on the right waves, and they're very aware of what the enemy is doing in terms of their map movement. And I think they managed to just take care of the sidling waves really, really well. As even though SK managed to find kills with the Sion and so forth, they were giving up a lot of waves, and often whenever SK did anything positive, they had to pay a price for it. I think a big one really was the fact that G2 managed to get the tier 2 top with the Herald, and they got away with it even though SK had full control over mid. There was also a situation where Caps just kept pushing bot and he got the tier 2 he just got the tier 2 bot in a very easy fashion, right? And this just made sure that G2 was always in good condition gold-wise, and even though SK picked up a couple of kills here and there, G2 was fighting back. I think that they showed a lot more fight IQ in terms of understanding their position and which areas they need to be in. And then eventually there was a circumstance where Caps just did this complete James Bond move, and he just completely smurfed the game. He waited for Sion to pass, and then he undermined SK that just went to top side without the help of Sion, and Sion was spotted, and then the game was completely over. G2 showing that they by far have the best macro in the league, even in cases where they didn't look that great in the early game. But I think This Jace Maokai combination with the Nautilus on 3, I think, is a very nice one. I'm surprised that Callista is the AD that actually goes through here. But I like the Elise. Once again, the Elise secured a big part of the early game here, and it made SK very competitive against a very strong G2. All in all, G2, as I mentioned before, strongest macro team in the league. Let's talk about predictions coming into the next day. We have some pretty one-sided matchups, I'd say. I don't think any upset's going to happen. I think Astralis versus Excel, a very big do-or-die moment here for Excel. Excel are going to face BDS and Astralis, and if I try to think of them beating either one, I think that's not going to happen. Not going to happen at all. Astralis is going to smack Excel on the forehead. Excel just looked too uninteresting. SK versus Mad, with what Mad has shown, like they seem to be not just lost in the sauce, they are drowning in the sauce. I don't know how Mad Lions solve their situation currently. I really don't know. I feel like they have an identity crisis, and no team is going to let them play Rakan, Annie, or Gragas. They need to like drop AD carry support 4-5 and let Hilly cook some cocktail shit. Let them play Rel on 5 peak, Pike, something like this, you know. Just let Hilly cook. Let him counterpick and see what happens. Just pick Kazi, Ezreal, and let Hilly roam mid or some shit. I don't know. It is looking rough. BDS versus Koi. Like, Koi won today, but bro, some of these Koi victories are really something else. That was a robbery, you know. That was Grand Theft Auto, their match. So it doesn't fill me with excitement about Koi. I think BDS is going to take this one. Vitality versus Team Heretics. You know, Vitality might have some issues here and there, but I don't think Team Heretics have anything to say on an individual basis. You literally have the weakest top laner in the league against the best top laner in the league. And that is going to be a rough one. Maybe Bo feels like he wants to donate a game or something. I don't know. It's such a far-fetched idea, believing in Vitality, like Team Heretics here over Vitality. That is a very interesting take in the chat. That is a very, very interesting take in the chat. Wow. I didn't even think about this, but it's so true. So basically, I have an evil Teddy wrote, do you think Vitality should int versus Heretics to put Mad in the dirt? And if Team Heretics win an additional point, the odds of Mad Lions qualifying to the next stage definitely suffers. So it would be like a giga brain move. Obviously, at the cost of competitive integrity. No one has ever done that, but this is probably one of those moments where you are the most heavily incentivized to throw. It's like they can spell their doom by losing to Team Heretics. That is crazy. That is crazy to even think about. Thank you. Wow. Like Mad have to face G2. That is something else. Finally, the match of the week, Fnatic versus G2. Like I am not gonna huff. I'm not gonna huff and puff Fnatic Copium just yet. I think there's ways to beat them in draft, and no one has deployed the evil strategy just yet. And I might be wrong. Maybe it doesn't work, but at least I want to see someone try. You know? At least let someone try. For the love of God. All in all, if we look at the changes in the standings, right? The big changes in the standings in terms of what really stands out here is just Mad Lions, Team Heretics, and XL. It's like the fact that Fnatic won this one increased their odds so fucking high because the teams below them, the odds of them winning their matches is already fucking low. The odds of more than 2 winning a match in their last games, for that to happen, really, really low odds. Yeah. It's time for me to sleep, guys. If you sneezed during this video or podcast or whatever this is, bless you and bless your face. I'll catch you on the Flippity Flop. All right, I think it's time for me to sleep, guys.